Hello and welcome back to Casual Watch Review channel. Something a little bit different this week for me because I'm reviewing a smartwatch. This is in collaboration, I will say, with Pininfarina. It's called Pininfarina on the start, but Pininfarina, as we know, is a design company, typically was known for designing cars. Well, they've put their name to this new smartwatch, and as you can see, only the top part is actually smart. The rest of it is a normal watch. I don't think it's quartz. I think it's a mechanism that's driving it, but it has a heart rate sensor on it. Also has some other really cool features as well. It has an app that syncs with the phone. I think this is a nice addition if you are looking for some smarter features in a watch, but you don't want to go all in on an Apple Watch or another smartwatch where the entire thing is a screen. This still very much looks like maybe a smart Panerai a little bit, but it does have some additional smart features in it. There's a lot to like about this watch, but there's definitely some things we need to discuss, certainly around the app that this syncs with. As always, let's flip the camera around, dive into the review, and then let me know what you think at the end. This is not my typical bag reviewing smartwatches, but this is the first time that I'd been offered a review copy of one of these hybrid smartwatches. And to be honest, I was really curious to see what they were like. You've got a very traditional looking watch with smart capabilities. So you've not got an entire screen that is taken over by the smartwatch and then the analog watch face is projected on there or is an image like the Apple Watch is. So this really seemed like the best of both worlds. You get the look of an analog watch with additional smart features. Its sizes, its proportions, and the way that it operates with a crown and pushers is very similar to a traditional watch, more than I would say a smartwatch. Before we dive in, let's just do a quick stats check on here. The front is sapphire crystal. The case is 44 millimeters in diameter, 16 millimeters thick, which I think is pretty good considering the sensor that is in the back. And then we have a strap width of 22 millimeters, and this is a traditional watch strap with quick release bars on it. You could put this on any other watch strap. You wouldn't obviously put it on a NATO because that would obscure the sensor on the back, but you could pretty much put this on any strap. The band that it comes with is a leather band. It does look a little cheaper than I was expecting, so I didn't think it would last, but it certainly has lasted. I've been wearing this quite often for the last 4 weeks because I really wanted to give it a proper test with all of its features, and I've been wearing it to bed. I think the newer ones do come on a rubber band. I'm not crazy about the leather band that it came with, but it does have a nice buckle on it and it does suit the watch. Even though it is larger at 44 millimeters, it is very wearable. Here you can see it on my 7.2 inch wrist. It has 50 meters of water resistance, which means that you could probably go swimming in it, but it's not specifically designed for that. One of the activities on here isn't swimming. The activities that you have are basically a step counter, and then you have the sports, which is walking, cycling, running, elliptical, hiking, interval training, weight training, boxing, cricket for some reason. I don't know if they're aiming this at the British and Indian markets. And then we have free training, yoga, rowing, soccer, skipping, treadmill, walking, and back round to walking. I use this walking, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we see the app. And I also used it on the Peloton, but I had to use it in the free workout section of the Peloton because it doesn't have a exercise bike mode on this. But one thing I will say that I was impressed with on the Peloton, I wear a separate heart rate monitor that goes across my chest rather than my wrist. And when I was using this, the watch's heart rate that it was displaying on the watch was the same as what was coming from the heart rate sensor. So I was pretty impressed that the two of them matched. I was expecting them to be, a little bit off, to be honest, but it did actually work quite well. You can operate a lot of the features by the crown here. If you push the crown in, it activates the smart features, and then you go through and you scroll through all of the different elements, and then the pushers are used to go back and forth between the settings. One of the other cool features on here is it has a remote, so you can use it to remotely take a photo with your phone or start a video recorder. It has a compass, which I didn't really use a lot. The sensors that are on this are an accelerometer, electrocardiogram, an optical heart rate sensor, a 3D magnetometer. The accelerometer is used for the steps, but the main sensors to do with the heart rate are in the health section. You have a heart rate sensor where you can take an immediate idea of your heart rate. You have a oxygen level sensor as well, which detects breathing disturbances. I didn't really use that a lot, but one thing I did use quite a bit was the ECG, or the electrocardiograph. I'm sure there's some people in the medical field that will say that this isn't an ECG, and I'm sure you're correct, because almost every time that I've had an ECG, you have to have a lot of those sticky conductive pads, and I always seem to find them days later, the ones that I'd forgotten to remove. So I'm not sure how accurate an ECG is on the wrist, but what is cool is it looks very good in the app. It does take an ECG reading for, I think, about 30 seconds. I did get a bit of a shock the first time I did it, because I got a warning asking me to immediately see a medical professional, but I think that's just because I did it wrong. You essentially press ECG on the watch and then you have to put your hand over it. I presume this is to make a closer contact between your wrist and the sensors, and then you have to stay very still. One thing I was a little bit concerned about, and I have a similar concern with the G-Shocks that I reviewed, was that there isn't a lot of app integration with these apps in terms of linking it with other things. The kings here, of course, are the Apple Watch and the Garmin. They have a lot of connectivity with third-party services beyond just the app that it comes with. This watch, a lot of it is powered from the app. There is a link that you can do with the Apple Health Kit, and you can view some of your statistics in the Apple Fitness app, as you can see here. But what I couldn't find on this watch was the ability to show a map of where I walked. So I couldn't find a way of rendering a map on here, which for an Apple Watch and obviously for a Garmin watch, you can easily do that to track your run. Here it just seemed to track the steps and the length of time, and you could also track some of your heart rate as well on some of the walks, but I couldn't see a way of seeing this on a map. And there isn't GPS built into the watch itself. I presume the GPS would come from the phone. The app overall is very easy to use. One of the features that I did like about it was the sleep tracking, and it does go into the Apple Healthcare app as well. I presume it would be the same with Android. I like the sleep settings. Here you can see where it shows a graph of your sleep, and then it gives you an idea of how good the sleep was. This watch is, even though it's quite heavy, there definitely is a substantial feeling to it. It didn't bother me at all in the night. The only thing that did bother me is the little screen is activated. The light is activated by movement, so sometimes it would activate as I was rolling over asleep, and if I was half asleep, I could tell that the watch was lighting up. There might be a way of turning this down, but it certainly was something that I noticed on the OLED screen. It has lume on the hands and the indices, even though you can see the time in the dark from the OLED screen, but they've still put lume on the hands. The small seconds at the bottom, I've got this set to display small seconds when the watch is not in an activity, but you can also have this set to other things as well, like steps. So there's a lot of things I liked about this watch, but there were certainly some things that I found challenging that we need to talk about, and it's mainly to do with what happens when the battery runs down. So it does have a very long battery life. On the website it says 30 days, and I'm guessing if you had the sensors switched off, then it would last for 30 days. It does last you a couple of weeks if you're using all of the features, maybe a week if you were really heavily using it, but I did notice that it had a very good battery life. The watch itself is powered from the battery. I don't think it's a traditional quartz watch. I think it's powered mechanically from the rest of the watch. So that does mean that if the battery dies on the watch, also the analog hands don't continue to, it's not that the OLED screen just switches off and then the rest of the watch continues to move. The whole watch does die. And this is one of the problems, because often the two times where I had it where I left the watch to completely deplete, where it completely just switched off and died and it had charged, in both of those scenarios the hands misaligned. So when the watch itself syncs up to your phone, OLED time obviously updates to the current time, but the hands don't. You have to use part of the app that realigns the hands. This was easy once I'd done it the first time, but it can be a little bit tedious. Now, I did have it go dead where it came back alive and the hands sort of reset themselves, so I'm not sure if there was an app update midway through me testing this, but it was certainly something that I noticed. Also, the battery life timer on here is not accurate. The watch stays at 100% for a long time. It stays at 50% for a long time, or 49% for a long time. Then it goes to 20, and then I didn't see it go below 20 at all, and then the watch would just die. So there's some disconnect between the percentage of battery life that's being displayed on the watch when you crown up versus what seems to actually be left, other than just the overall look of the watch. The tie-in with Pininfarina, there doesn't seem to be anything special car racing features watches or anything like that that you might expect with a tie-in with a company that's synonymous with motorsport. So there isn't any car specific tie-in, lap timers or anything like that. You've got some simple chronograph countdown, and then you've got the activities on there as well. You haven't got anything specific to automotive. I think for $399, you're getting a very nice looking, decent feeling watch for the money. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.